And now, story time with Thorgi.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Now, today we will be exploring the complete history of Kingdom Hearts. So join me, won't you, as we explore this rich, deep story. Wow, that's a lot of X's. Okay. Long ago, there was one world that existed under Kingdom Hearts, and Kingdom Hearts could be accessed by using the Keyblade. Okay, you know what? It just hit me. I should probably explain this. Keyblade in this instance is spelled with the Greek letter for X. Trust me, you're going to need to know this. Now, the Keyblade allowed the Keyblade Masters to access the Keyblades from within themselves. Okay, in this instance, Keyblade is being spelled K-E-Y. Now, one day, the Keyblade, this one spelled with an X, was shattered into... After being possessed by Xehanort, Terra lost all of his memories, so he started working under the tutelage of Ansem the Wise. Now, okay, I should probably go ahead and explain this. Ansem ends up teaching Terra Xehanort how to separate his heart from himself, and that ends up creating a creature known as a Heartless. Now, Terra Xehanort's Heartless becomes known as Ansem. So there's Heartless Ansem and not Heartless Ansem. Are we all good? You also might be wondering what happens when your heart comes out of yourself. Well, then you end up creating something called a nobody. And that leads us into Organization 13. So, you've got Roxas, and he's running around Twilight Town. And Roxas is Sora's nobody, and he was a member of Organization 13. Although, you don't know that yet, you learned that on a different game that came out on a completely different handheld system. So, you've got Roxas, and he was in Organization 13 because they needed someone to be able to wield the Keyblade. I think it's with a K in this instance. But there was another member of Organization 13, and Organization 14, if you will, and her name was Xion. And she was an artificial creature created from Sora's memories so that they could have a backup to Roxas in case he didn't work out. And she looks like Kairi because that was Sora's last thought. So, now that Xehanort's Heartless and Nobody have been destroyed, they fuse back together into the original Xehanort, so he's back now. And he's going to create a brand new Organization 13, but he's not just going to get anyone for this organization. He's going to use time travel to go back and get different versions of himself for this new organization. And they're going to be called the real Organization 13. You know what? That's it. Screw it. I'm done. I'm out. This is stupid. The story of Kingdom Hearts is nothing but overly complex personal headcanon that got out of control and should never have been allowed to get to this point. I'm done. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go back to listening to part 238 of an ongoing podcast that details the deep lore of Dark Souls.
At the bottom of that staircase, you will find the armor of Havel the Rock. Havel the Rock has high magical defense. Why is that? Is it because he had to fight a wizard? We may never know.
Brilliant! Brilliant! You know, it just occurred to me that maybe I'm being kind of hypocritical about the Kingdom Hearts story, and maybe it does have fans for a reason, and maybe there are people who really get into it, and that's absolutely okay because it's designed for them, and that's just fine, and I shouldn't judge that. Maybe we can put these feelings in order if we actually do a review of the game. Here's our review of Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yes, after all this time, the finale to the Kingdom Hearts... Well, I guess it's a trilogy? Sort of? Kind of? Not really. But the end of Phase 1 of the Kingdom Hearts story is finally here. This is one of those games that people had to wait so long on that they had doubts it would ever actually get here, so saying it's got a lot of hype riding behind it would be an understatement. So, does it live up to expectations? Kind of. I mean, it's got its moments. Honestly, there's a lot in here that I loved, and a lot in here that I didn't. In fact, for almost everything I enjoyed in here, there was something else that countered it. For example, let's start with the presentation. Now, I have to heap a ton of praise onto this game for looking gorgeous. Normally, when you have a game wait this long to come out, there's always that fear that's going to end up looking dated, but I constantly found myself stopping to admire every single world that I fell into. Each with their own flavor and color pattern and texture to them that really did make it feel like I was jumping from one modern Disney classic to another. The lush greens of the Tangle world, the stunning realism of the Pirates world, the living city of the Big Hero 6 world, it all makes you feel like you're exploring each of them in ways that you could only dream of in previous games. I mean, I know I shouldn't have to applaud it for this, but every single time that I went into a level and I saw that, oh my god, these places actually have people now, I had to kind of stop and admire that. I'm not kidding you, when I first played through Kingdom Hearts 2, I thought Twilight Town was supposed to be left abandoned on purpose. I thought it was going to be revealed that was a plot point, but no, they just didn't put anyone in the town. But now, wow, does it feel good to actually have these places look like people live here. It makes them feel so much more alive. And the characters themselves look excellent. Mike and Sully from Monsters, Inc. look just as good as they did in the film. And the animation on Jack Sparrow captures every unique twist of his eyebrow or twerk of his cheek. The work put into this deserves all the applause that it's been receiving. But looks aren't everything, and when it comes to the sound design, it's off. There were several cutscenes in this game that had missing sound effects or no background music, and it was so frustrating to have such gorgeous animation giving these characters life, only for the lack of music to suck it right back out of them.
How you doing? The name's Flynn Rider. How's your day going? Huh?
Who else knows my location, Flynn Rider?
All right, hang on, Blondie.
Rapunzel.
Gesundheit.
That leaves you with pretty much only the voice work to carry you through many of these scenes, and you want to talk about something being uneven in this game? Look no further. I swear, there had to be 2 different voice directors in this game because the first several worlds that I went to sounded so flat and irregular.
We can decipher Ansem's code more quickly, and we can analyze the virtual Twilight Town while we're at it.
Buddy, what is going on? Is this toy a friend or foe?
You're trying to remember what you forgot?
I am a robot I cannot love.
I was ready to put the final judgment down and say that all this acting was bad, but then we got to the Tangled world, and that acting was actually pretty good. Same thing went for the next several worlds after that, and I couldn't believe how much it shifted in quality. Even characters who I thought were weak in the first part of this game were now suddenly giving completely different performances. But then when I was ready to take back everything that I said about this acting, we then cut to a couple of the characters in this game who just never improved. They just always sounded completely off. I'm very curious to see some of the behind the scenes videos on the making of this game because I have no idea how you can get so many performances that are all over the place like this. But what about the gameplay? I remember loving Kingdom Hearts 2 for its fast-paced, over-the-top combat, and I'm pleased to say that makes a return. Eventually. You see, at the start of this game, Sora has lost all of his powers, and you'll have to travel around to different worlds attempting to regain them.
Wow, I can't believe that Sora lost all of his powers just in time for a brand new game, and the only way to get them back is by exploring brand new worlds and leveling up. How convenient.
But while I do understand they needed to do something like this in order to give you a reason to level up and introduce you to the mechanics all over again, I kinda wish that they didn't start you off at 0. As I said, even though I haven't played this game in 13 years, I still remember how good the combat felt, and going all the way back down to nothing was kinda boring until I leveled up enough. Also, this one might just be me, but I really wish that they let you customize the button layout in this game because I'm used to games where circle is dodge, X is jump, and square is attack. But here, circle is jump, X is attack, and square is dodge. And it took me hours to finally get my fingers to adjust to that. Again, I know a lot of people aren't going to have a problem with that, but I wouldn't have had a problem with it at all if they just let you customize the buttons. But that being said, I did eventually get used to it, and even if you're starting out weaker, I did love that every single time that you leveled up, you could actually feel yourself growing stronger. You can almost instantly see results, and by the end of this game, when I was back to being fully powered up, it did feel really cool to whip out a flurry of special attacks again. And even if you don't feel powerful enough at the start of the game, Donald and Goofy actually hold their own in combat, which I think is the first time I've ever actually been able to say that. My memory of these two in the previous games pretty much always consisted of me just telling Goofy to stop wasting potions on me because I had a paper cut, and begging Donald to heal me when I was hanging on by a thread. But here, I can actually see them doing damage to the opponents, and man, was that appreciated. And of course, they kept in here the giant super attacks and transformations that I loved from the last game, but this time, they went even crazier with it. Every single Keyblade that you unlock in each world is going to have 2 different forms that you can transform them into if you do damage quickly enough, and that alters how you fight with them. All accompanied by a transformation sequence that really made you feel like you were kicking the battle up a notch. And unlike in the previous games where each Keyblade you got was stronger than the last one, forcing you to keep swapping them out whenever you moved on to a new world, in this game each Keyblade is almost equal in power when you first get it, and you can upgrade them individually to make your favorite Keyblade as strong as you want it, giving you way more freedom to play the game however you want. In fact, you can equip up to 3 Keyblades at once, each with their own abilities and stats that will be helpful in certain situations, and then you can cycle through them in the middle of combat in order to create a variety to this battle system that we've never really seen from any of the other Kingdom Hearts. And these changes to the Keyblades aren't the only twist that they add to the combat. You can have Donald, Goofy, or any of your other guest fighters do combo moves with you. You can summon out additional Disney characters for elemental attacks, or you can even bring out theme park rides straight from the Magic Kingdom itself, which honestly always felt kind of weird to me. It was like I was damaging the opponents by watching a commercial for Disneyland. But hey, at least they still look cool. However, again, with every positive, there is a negative. Yes, these big attacks are cool and look epic when you activate them, but dear God, you activate so many of them that eventually they just kind of lose their impact. It isn't uncommon to activate 2 or 3 of these big cinematic attacks back to back to back in almost every single battle, and not only did that eventually get old, but when you activate this many big massive super moves, it made the regular non-flashy combat just kind of feel pointless to me. Like, me swinging the Keyblade around was just something I had to do to kill time until I could bring out a pirate ship. In fact, a lot of people out there have criticized this game for feeling way too easy, and I think it is because they give you so many big, massive special moves. Towards the end of this game, I actually found myself refusing to use some of these moves simply because I did want to provide myself with more of a challenge. Then again, maybe I would feel a bit more impact from these battles, and these big flashy moves would feel more important if these battles weren't constant. I've got this beautiful world to explore, but anytime that I came near a big open area, I just groaned at the sight of it because I knew it meant, alright, here comes another one. As I said, the combat can be really fun, but I feel like these fights happen way too frequently. I would have preferred some more variety to how you explore these worlds. Not to say that there isn't any variety, most worlds threw in there at least something unique to them. In Rapunzel's world, you had to traverse up the side of a mountain using her hair to swing from one ledge to the next, and that's actually really clever. Or in the Frozen world, you could go bobsledding down the mountain, and that turned into its own fun little mini game. And in the Pirates of the Caribbean world, they gave you this big open world to sail around and explore, and while you're doing that, they replaced normal battles with ship battles. And I know that some people have said they hated this world because of that, but honestly, I found this sailing mechanic to actually be kind of fun. But again, for every positive, there is a negative. Several other bits of gameplay actually drove me nuts. Like in the Frozen world where you had to reassemble Olaf's missing pieces, which not only are next to impossible to find in this big snowy setting, but also he kept saying, I'm over here, over and over again, no matter where I was on the map.
Hey, I'm over this way. Hey, I'm over this way. I'm over here. Hey, I'm over this way. I'm over here. Hey, I'm over this way. I'm over here.
Or how about when you had to find 300 white crabs in the Pirates world? In fact, I'll expand that to any time in any of the worlds you had to collect X number of anything. It wasn't fun, it always felt tedious. I mean, if I told you that there was something in a game where you had to collect 300 white crabs, you would think to yourself, oh, that's probably for some really weird, obscure, optional trophy. Not here. Here, it's mandatory. But when talking about weird gameplay that was put in here to help spice things up, we have to talk about the gummy ships. I've always hated the gummy ships in any Kingdom Hearts game, and here it was no exception. The controls felt awkward. It felt like I was never steering this thing, but just gently nudging it in whatever direction I wanted it to go, which, I don't mind telling you, in later levels became infuriating. This goes on for some time. However, I don't know why, I don't know how it happened, but after I beat the game, I went back to get a few more trophies, many of which required the gummy ships, and then when I no longer had to get from point A to point B, when I could just float around exploring this big open space looking for collectibles or enemies, much to my surprise, I actually found myself really enjoying it. It was pretty peaceful and relaxing to just cruise around. So while I did find it frustrating as part of the actual game, I do still see the positives in it, and it did end up being something that I enjoyed just chilling out to. There's also a ton of side content in here as well, and I'm always for that. I always enjoy mini games and collectibles, and it's good to see how many of those this game provided you with. But again, good, bad, you know the whole deal. You can explore each world to find Mickey Mouse symbols, which are fun and left me looking around every world with a magnifying glass, and they're pretty clever how they hid some of them in here. There's also a handful of old Tiger Electronic handheld games in here, and I actually did enjoy these from a nostalgic point of view. I found them to be really cute, but that's about all they were. Just some cute nostalgia. They didn't really have much appeal aside from that. You can also find ingredients to cook meals for yourself with Remy from Ratatouille, and I thought this was a brilliant idea for a minigame, but I don't even know if I would call it a minigame because most of them are over with in the blink of an eye. I'm not kidding you, several of those Ratatouille minigames only lasted about 2 seconds for me. That is not an exaggeration. And there are several games that you can play in the 100 Acre Woods, but they're all really just glorified phone games. And considering that the 100 Acre Woods in Kingdom Hearts 3 almost feels like an afterthought, I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly what they are. If they just had some Winnie the Pooh mobile games just laying around and they wanted to test the waters in Kingdom Hearts 3 before they actually released it to the public on their phones. But hey, it's not like any of this stuff is bad, and it is extra content, so even if it is underwhelming, I'm not going to be mad that it's in the game. I still appreciate that they put something in here aside from the main storyline. Speaking of that, yes, we talked about the gameplay and the presentation, so now it's time to talk about the story.
Yes, I know I started this video off with a joke about how crazy the Kingdom Hearts story is, but real talk, we do kind of have to actually address it, because at this point, it's as much a draw for the people who play these games as any of the Disney crossover elements are. And while this game isn't the end of the series, it is the end of about 8 or 9 different storylines that have been building up over the course of several games and God only knows how many years. So we do have to address it. I'm not going to address it. Yes, I know. Okay, hear me out. I will talk about elements of the story, but I'm not going to talk about the overall story. And the reason for that is because nothing I say is going to have any impact on you. My own feelings towards the Kingdom Hearts story are complicated, and we are going to make a video in which I do give you my thoughts and feelings towards the Kingdom Hearts story, but let's be real. If you love the Kingdom Hearts story, this game is already going to be in your top 3 favorite games of the year just by existing. Do you hate the Kingdom Hearts story, and you hope that you can ignore it in this game? You can't, it's everywhere. Do you not know anything about Kingdom Hearts, and you hope that you can go into this completely fresh? Oh, you poor, sweet, naive fools. I wish you luck. So yes, even though I do have my own feelings towards Kingdom Hearts, nothing I say is going to affect whatever personal baggage you're bringing into this game. So because of that, the story itself, at least the overall story, is completely review-proof. Nothing anyone says will have any impact on you. However,
what I can review is how this story is presented in this game. And guess what? There's positives and negatives. Who saw that coming? As with any Kingdom Hearts game, you're going to go from one Disney world to the next until you hit your big conclusion where you have to face off with the evil organization, but the journeys feel different this time around because, as I said, we've had this huge story building in all these games, and now we're finally at their peak. The epic climax we've been waiting on. It's finally here! And this game begins with Yin Sid telling Sora to just go and float around until he figures out how to get his powers back, while Riku and Mickey actually try to do anything about this story, most of which is going to happen off screen. Yeah, that's literally why you're traveling around the worlds this time. You're just bumming around until you figure out what to do next. I honestly found this to be a bit frustrating. It felt like going to all these worlds was just filler. I was here for the finale, darn it. I was ready to see how this story ended, and yet what we got was Yin Sid telling us, this is the end-all be-all. Everything is finally coming to an end. And then we would just cut to Sora chilling out with a talking snowman.
See? I told you! A walking, talking snowman!
Yes, we all see it, Sora. That's nice. You know that the multiverse is about to end, right? But even though going to these Disney worlds feels more pointless than the previous games, they do actually manage to tie them into the overall story pretty well. Sort of. You see, they actually found a reason for the evil Organization 13 to be at each of these worlds. They need to learn how to build an artificial heart, so why not look to the Big Hero 6 world where they actually create thinking, caring robots? Or the Toy Story world where artificial beings can think and care about each other. They need the power of darkness, so what better place to look than the Monsters Inc. world where they actually found a way to harness the power of screams. So even though going from world to world feels like it has zero motivation, they did find a way to give each world a purpose. Although, I wish they could have made their points a little more succinctly because, dear God, when the organization members start explaining their plans, they go on for so long, it's not even funny. I mean that literally. How overly talkative and wordy these expositions are have been a punchline of this entire franchise. You've all seen people making the jokes about how many times they say hearts and darkness.
Heart, darkness.
Hearts.
Darkness.
Hearts.
Darkness. Heart.
Darkness. Hearts inside my heart.
Vast darkness. Tremendous darkness. Hearts.
Darkness.
Heart. Darkness.
Heart. Heart to darkness. Darkness.
Heart.
Darkness.
Heart.
Darkness.
Hearts.
Darkness. Heart.
There's a reference that only 3 people in my audience are going to get.
But in Kingdom Hearts 3, it almost feels like they were aware of this joke and said, oh, you think that's funny? I'll show you, because these plot dumps are so frequent and so long, you could leave, make a sandwich, and come back before they're done. I mean, I kept hearing people say that this game is just for the fans, but don't the fans already know all of this? And if you're new to this game, these long expositions are just going to leave you more lost than ever. You're not going to pick any of this story up from this. So if the old fans already know this, and the new fans won't be able to understand it, then what's the point of all these 10-minute long cutscenes about darkness and hearts? Although, I will say, every now and again, the Disney characters would step up and say, yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about, and I don't care. And it was so cathartic, it almost made these monologues worth it.
The darkness of being alone is a power even greater. Darkness is the heart's true nature.
Whatever you're talking about, I don't care. Put Buzz back the way he was, then get lost.
P.S. How did we not get the Incredibles in here? I mean, you literally have a franchise where villains monologuing is a running joke, and you didn't use it in the game that has cartoonishly long villain monologuing? Come on, Disney! But as much as these characters love the sound of their own voice, and as much as they go on and on, it is shocking how much of this game takes place off-screen or is never explained. You keep cutting back to Kairi and Axel talking about their training to become Keyblade Masters, which is all you're going to get. You never see any of that training. There is a revelation that is made about several of the villains that never comes up again after it's revealed, and it has no payoff. There is a character who betrays someone else in here, and you have no idea how that betrayal affects that character because they are never seen again for the rest of the game. Did they get away with it? Were they caught? I don't know, your guess is as good as mine. All throughout this game, you're going to keep cutting away to Maleficent and Pete as they look for a black box, and that black box is... beats me. We never find out. It was all just here to tease stuff for a future game. Don't get me wrong, I'm cool with you planting seeds for future games, but this isn't planting seeds. This is you stopping the game we're already playing to take us on a tour of a seed factory. I keep hearing people compare this game to the Marvel movies because of how much setup there is. And do you remember in Iron Man 2, when they stopped the whole film just to say, hey guys, the Avengers is coming. Remember the Avengers and Nick Fury? It's coming. That's the thing that's happening. Let's stop and talk about it. Yeah, that's what the black box is, over and over.
And there are so many other problems that I have that I cannot talk about because they are huge spoilers. But let's just say Xehanort has to form a new Organization 13 made up of characters from the previous games, and no spoilers, but some of his choices make zero sense. Some of his choices are characters that he knows he can't trust, but he still chooses them because of reasons. And speaking of Xehanort, after all this time, we finally learned his true motivation for starting the new Keyblade War, and it's awful. It is so bad, I cannot hide this. The explanation for his reasoning for starting the new Keyblade War feels like a massive cop-out. It feels like an insult to the fans. And I'm saying that with some first-hand references. I know some big fans of this franchise who hated his motivation. Can we just go back to talking about the Disney characters?
Speaking of these Disney worlds, that was originally the big appeal of these games, that you get to go and fight through each of these classic Disney films. So how does it feel to go through these worlds this time? Great! Except when it doesn't! I swear to you, I'm not trying to make the same point over and over. That's just how it is. For every positive, there really is a negative. There's the opening Hercules world, which is alright. It's the tutorial level, so you can't really judge it along with the other worlds. But after that, there's 6 worlds to go to, and I kid you not, 3 of them are great. 3 of them kinda stink. Again, I'm just talking about how the story is presented in here. But it really feels like these stories are written by 2 totally different people. In the Toy Story world, you have a completely original story with Buzz and Woody in totally original locations, so they were able to build whatever story that they want with them, making little references back to the movies and new story beats about how these characters relate to Sora and his crew, but in the end, they're creating something new, and it worked. Then you've got the Monsters, Inc. world that actually takes place after the movie, and you get to see how Mike and Sully are turning this company around and making up for scaring kids in the past, and it shows how much these characters have developed and grown after the movie ended, and that is wonderful for the fans. And the interactions and personalities of these 2 were perfect. There is one sequence of the 2 of them at the very end of your story here that is so absolutely spot on for the style of humor that these films had that I won't dare spoil it, but it may be my favorite thing in this entire game. The wit and the timing of that scene feels like it was created by some of the same brilliant minds that worked on the films. But my hands down favorite world in terms of story had to be the Big Hero 6 world, because not only does it take place after the film and you get to see how these characters have continued to grow and develop after the movie ended, but you actually see them learning from Sora in ways that push them ahead in their own superheroics. They actually stop to delve into something that happened in their movie that was kind of a huge deal. And at the end, you have now changed this world forever. In most of these Disney worlds, you get the feeling that as soon as Sora left, that's it, and these characters could forget that you ever met them and it wouldn't have any impact on them at all. Not here. The Big Hero 6 world actually felt like they wanted to build something here with these characters, and if you were in any way a fan of that film, it's going to mean something to you. However, speaking of the world where Sora isn't important at all, the other 3 worlds fall into this category pretty heavily, as Tangled, Pirates, and Frozen all basically just tell the movie's stories all over again, except without Sora there for large parts of it, and when he is there, it almost feels like they just played an exact scene from the film and they photoshopped Sora into it. So if you never watched any of these films, you'll have no idea what's happening in these worlds. And if you did watch them, then you can't help but say, Sora, you weren't there in this scene, because I'm not exaggerating here, that's how out of place he feels in some of these shots. Tangled wasn't that bad. They still went through a fair amount of the plot, but they still left out a couple of huge reveals from that story. So if you never watched Tangled, yeah, you're gonna be kind of confused. Frozen is completely unbalanced, leaving out massive information and then stopping to show you the most marketable moments. I know you've all probably heard this by now, but I do have to come in here and stress, yes, they actually did do this. They do stop the entire game to make you watch a shot-for-shot reshoot of Let It Go. In fact, in this world, Sora's entire impact on the story really does feel like he could have been in deleted scenes of the movies, because everything even remotely important to Anna and Elsa's story happens when Sora is either not there or standing way out in the background, just out of frame. For crying out loud, the main villain in Frozen doesn't even get a line of dialogue before you have to fight him in the game. Literally everything that happens with him is off screen, and they just assume that you're going to know he's the bad guy. If you never watched Frozen, none of this means anything to you. But that isn't even the worst. That, hands down, goes to the Pirates world, because at least most people know Frozen. The Pirates world is telling you the third Pirates film, and how many people at this point even remember that movie? Plus, in Frozen, they still managed to give you enough to understand what's going on. You still at least know that something is up with Anna and Elsa. The Pirates world gives you nothing. If you don't know who these characters are, or why they're all here, or why that one dude is standing in a bucket of water, then too bad, you're getting nothing. And if you do think that you can understand what's happening in this story, well, then they'll send you off to fight some Heartless or, collect 300 white crabs. And then when you rejoin the rest of the cast, they'll be half an hour later into the movie with zero explanation about how we got from there to here. Every single time in the Pirates world that we had to watch a cutscene explaining what the story of the Pirates film was, my jaw dropped open at how poorly they were able to integrate that into this game.
Jack! Cutler Beckett has the heart of Davy Jones. He controls the Flying Dutchman.
He's taking over the seas.
And he must be stopped. The brethren caught is called.
I'm sorry. I literally have no idea what you're talking about.
However, as I said, going into this game, I just cared about the main story of the Keyblade wielders and the organization. And after you clear the last world, you finally get to progress that story. And even though, as I said, my feelings towards this story are complicated to say the least, I could still look at the moment in here and say, this has to be blowing the minds of the fans. There are so many moments that come back around, or elements from the previous games that pay off in huge ways. Hell, there is something from the mobile game that comes back in such a big way that I could only imagine how much fans of this franchise must be losing their minds over it. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but it really does feel like they had a list of several scenes that they knew these fans needed to see, and the entire end of this game is just them going down that checklist, marking every single one of them off. And I have to applaud this story for that, because even if I didn't get a big impact out of it, the people that this was aimed at certainly did.
Unless you were one of the fans out there who was really waiting on one particular character in this game to finally be useful. Again, no spoilers, but man, they did that character dirty.
So yes, it was a long, hard road to get to this game, but it was also a long, hard road to get through this review, because as I said, for every positive, I did have a negative. But a lot of those negatives were in the beginning, and to me, the end of a game is far more important. The combat felt flat at first, but towards the end, it returned to being the over-the-top extravaganza of special moves that I remember. The Heartless and Nobodies flood your screen way too often, but it's still fun fighting them, and the boss fights are actually amazing. The delivery of the story is incredibly uneven, but if you're a fan of this game, then at the end, it finally sits down, focuses, and delivers. And after being done with this game for a week and having time to reflect on it, those positives stand out far more to me than the negatives. They're the thing I'm holding on to when I think back to my time playing it. So I'm giving this game a 7 out of 10. But again, that's coming from someone who just feels complicated about the game's history and story. If you love these characters and this story, then you will probably love this game, meaning you should more than likely just ignore everything I just said, and I basically just wasted half an hour of your life. So, you know, pretty much the same as every one of my other game reviews. I'm going to end this video now before anyone gets even more upset with me than they already are. Thank you very much for tuning in to our review of Kingdom Hearts 3. Let me know what you thought about this game in the comments down below or on Twitter or Twitch at Professor Thorgi. In fact, if you want to see us play through these games live where I get all my footage for these reviews, then make sure to join us over at twitch.tv/Professor Thorgi. And if you want to help this channel grow, then make sure that you share these videos around the web. In case you missed it, we just recently moved all of our stuff from another channel over to this one, and it's always scary having to start on a brand new channel. So if you want to help this channel grow, the best way to do that is just to spread the word. Thanks again for tuning in, everyone. Come back next time.